Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to pull up a screen share and setting a quick agenda for us. Today we are going to be talking about inbound and social media and how to maximize social media effectiveness for your growing business. We're going to start by taking kind of a step back and just talking about what is inbound marketing, kind of level setting there. Then we'll talk about how social media fits into an inbound marketing strategy. We'll talk about how social media and software play together, how you can use platforms to your advantage when doing your social, and then we'll open the floor up at the end for questions and discussion. So quick bit of background here. Hi everyone, my name is Magdalene Small. I'm a 6-year plus HubSpotter. Before that, I was an opera singer, so kind of came to HubSpot and tech in a roundabout way. I joined the HubSpot sales team as a very entry-level role. I worked my way up through the varying roles in sales, ultimately ending up as a sales rep on our small business sales team. So I mostly worked with startups and small businesses, employee size about 2 to 25, to help them figure out their business challenges, discuss business needs, software needs, and ultimately evaluate if HubSpot was the right platform for them. From there, I switched over to our HubSpot for Startups team in 2019. So I've actually been running all of our go-to-market partnerships in the Southwest. What that means is that I do a lot of education like this to startups, early stage companies, scale-ups, and I work with our awesome partners like Grid110 to provide educational content, resources, all of that good stuff that's really, really geared towards startups, early stage companies, and small businesses. Just a bit of personal info. I'm a Wisconsin native. I'm actually currently in Wisconsin visiting family, but I live in LA usually. So if anyone is local to LA or Southern California, I'm there. And I'm just really passionate about sales, marketing, and startups. So I'm excited to talk social media strategy with you today. To dig into it. So just to do a little level set, what is inbound? I guess, can everyone here give me a thumbs up if you've heard of inbound before? All right, I think probably most people have, but just in case anyone hasn't, inbound essentially is cutting through the noise and taking a more customer-centric approach to your marketing. And I think of also to your sales. Really, when you approach your business, it's taking an approach that focuses on your customer, on your customer's experience. It focuses on education, on being there as a thought leader and being there as a trusted advisor before you ever hit the point of sale with your prospect or with your customer. So as we look at social media, we're obviously going to focus a little bit more on like awareness, top of funnel type stuff as it pertains to inbound. But I think inbound really influences the entire way you go to market, the entire way you do your marketing, your sales, your customer service. And if you think about it in comparison to outbound, outbound is more marketer centric, and I really think outbound is more business centric. Outbound focuses on what is best for the business, what gets the business its bottom line, what gets the business leads, what gets the business sales, versus inbound focuses really on your buyer's experience, your customer's experience all throughout their journey. One way you can think of it as well is inbound focuses on adding value over extracting value. Now, ultimately, you do want your prospects to turn into customers. We will at some point need to extract value from them, but inbound really, really focuses, like I said, on building up education, brand equity, thought leadership, trusted advisor status, so that your prospects feel more comfortable ultimately becoming your customer when the timing is right. One last thing with inbound really focuses on drawing your customers to your products and services without disrupting them. So as we look at social, some ways that you can do this, you can do that through content marketing, social media marketing, SEO, and branding, brand equity, things like that. Now, talking a little bit about your buyer's journey. This is really important when thinking not only about inbound, but about your social media strategy. Every buyer goes through what we call a buyer's journey. So essentially, when you're building out like, hey, how do I want to go to market? How do I want to do my social media marketing? It's really important to keep your buyer's experience and your buyer's journey in mind. By this, I mean, most buyers start off in what we would call the awareness stage. This is a place where they probably have an idea that they have some type of problem, challenge, need, want, but they're not really exactly sure what it is. So in this phase, they're going to start maybe looking for solutions or looking for answers or even trying to put a name to the problem they're having. But all they know at this phase is like they have a problem, they have something they want to solve for, and they're going to go out and try to solve for it. So in this example here, maybe someone's sick, they're Googling like, hey, I have a sore throat, I've got a fever, I'm achy, I don't know what this is called, but something's wrong. What's wrong? From there, the buyer moves into the consideration stage. So at this phase, they've been doing their research, they've been kind of airing their challenges, their pain points, what have you. And now they've actually figured out what that pain is, essentially what challenge they're facing. They've put a name to it. So in this maybe example, they've gone, oh, okay, all my symptoms match with strep throat. Now I've got strep throat. Okay, so now what are my options? They're starting to actually, they've put a name to their challenges and they're going to go out and search for options to relieve symptoms. This puts them then into the decision stage. They know what their problem is, they know what it's called, and now they're ultimately looking for the right vendor, product, service, whatever you have it, to fix or solve their challenges. This is the decision phase. This is where they ultimately say you are a B2B business, they are a B2C business, whatever have you. This is where they're going to line you up against other competitors in their space and go, all right, now I know that I've got a problem. I know what it's called. And now I know how I want to solve it. I'm just picking the vendor or the product or the service that I'm going to use to actually help me solve that. So as you're putting together your social media strategy, think about and take some time to actually put together what is your buyer's journey. Some things I would often advise startups to think about when you're putting together your buyer's journey. Sit down and think, like, if someone's going to use your product or service, what challenges do you guys solve for? What pain points would you solve for? Say you're selling even a product. What's great about your product? What are people going to sit down at their computer and Google? If someone's scrolling social, what type of hashtags are they going to look for that would maybe start to show them things in your industry, things in your space, your product? Think about really the human side of it when you're creating your buyer's journey, and think about where people spend their time, especially when it pertains to social. Think about if they're online, they're scrolling, what are they scrolling for? What are they looking for? What are they clicking into? And then when it gets to each stage of the journey, continue to take that human approach to putting together your buyer's journey. So how do we bring inbound to social media? I think that inbound and social media can be used throughout all phases of your buyer's journey and your inbound funnel or flywheel. So at the top, when you're trying to get more eyes on your business, your brand, your product, basically you're in the attract phase. You can use things like hashtags. You can use things like social content, video content, maybe do some paid ads to really get your name and your brand out there if you're really early stage. Maybe you have some awesome posts, but at the time you just didn't have a followership, and now you're to a point where you actually have a bigger followership. You can reboost those posts. You can do a boosted post to get eyes in front of different people. You could maybe go viral with something. You could leverage the influencer marketing network. Influencers have a huge impact lately. Make partnerships with influencers who really have a good ethos about their brand, their personal brand. Try influencer marketing, and make sure also, and we'll talk about this a lot later, how to actually make sure you have an appropriate posting cadence, but also make sure that you're really aware of the type of content you're posting and the cadence in which you're posting it. Throughout the rest of your funnel, you can continue to use social. I think there's a real misconception that you can only use social to do lead generation or to really impact the attract phase. Throughout the rest of your funnel, you can use social to tell your customer base, your prospective customer base, about business updates, sales updates, product updates. You can have awesome customer interaction. So maybe thinking about like that video, that live, something like that. Maybe you do a customer interview, have engagements with a customer, talk to a customer online, engage with a prospective customer in the online space. You can also focus on a really immediate response time. So we'll talk again about this more later, but you can meet consumers where they are. And then you can also use it to talk to your existing customer base. So look for customer feedback. You can share your customers' posts and promote your customer voice. So really create a nice community and a nice ecosystem. You can have customer interactions, do social sharing. And like I said, just build that brand and that more ecosystem when it comes to your social, where your customers are promoting you, and in turn and in kind, you're promoting them, because it's all part of your happy social ecosystem. Here's some just pictorial examples of nice posts. Again, I think we all personally live on social quite a lot, especially after this past year. So I would encourage everyone, when you're thinking about posting to social for your business, really take the most human approach to it. Think about, when you've been online, the type of targeted ads or targeted social posts that have really spoken to you. it's ones with great visuals, great content, good branding, an actual content, the actual wording that feels human. It doesn't read as really stilted. So really think about, just from a human perspective, if you were in the shoes of your consumer, what would you click on? What would you engage with? What would you send to a friend? That's going to really truly inform your posting. So let's start to take a deeper look at social. And I'll take a pause here. Any questions so far on inbound, social, anyone having a particular challenge as it pertains to building brand or building social following that they want to make sure and address? All right, if anyone thinks of anything, please feel free to pop it in the chat. I'm happy to answer any kind of strategic questions, or even if someone has a software specific question. Obviously, I'm most well-versed with Hubspot, but can happily talk to any software questions as well. So looking at social, there are over 2.5 billion users of social media. And as I mentioned, I think especially given the past year, everyone has spent quite a lot of time on their phones, on their computers, on their devices, and on social media. Most social is accessed. Okay. So most social media is accessed through a mobile device, meaning that when it comes to, back to that visual slide we just looked at, when it comes to actually crafting your social, really be aware of the type of devices that your audience is spending their time on. Now, this might differ based on what your target consumer looks like. We'll talk a little bit more about where specific buyers spend their time. But think about where, not only what channels are people going to be on, but like what are they actually going to be using to look at that channel, and make sure your posts are formatted in a way where it's going to be correct for that device. Also, visual content is about 40 times more likely to get shared than other content. So by visual content, I mean things with pictures, videos, stuff like that. Really, really impactful. It gets more shares, gets more views. And YouTube has actually reached more 18 to 49-year-olds than any TV network in the US. So again, as we think about this shift to where consumers are spending their time, people are online. They are spending most of their time online. I think most of us could even see this from a personal perspective. A lot of us have given up cable subscriptions, things like that. A lot of people are online now. I personally consume most of my TV content on YouTube in 5 to 10 minute chunks. That kind of works with my day-to-day schedule. So again, take the human approach, think of where people are actually spending their time. And one last stat for you, Facebook is actually the most widely used social media platform out of everything. So why does this matter? And I'm seeing your questions, by the way. I'll get to them in 1 second. So why do all the social stats matter? So as we've talked about, social media usage is steadily increasing. Social is a great way to increase your brand exposure and your brand identity. I think it's also a really human way to increase your brand exposure. Email marketing is awesome. It serves a great purpose, but it can feel a little bit more business-like. Social is a really great way to bring a really human element into your branding and into your kind of brand, like your brand feel. And with billions of users, your audience is definitely out there. This is always a question that I get from different industries where they're like, you know what, I just don't think that we have anyone, who'd be interested in our products is really on social. I don't think our target audience is using social. They are definitely using social. They might not be using all social channels, but they're using at least one social channel probably. Now, how you can go about figuring this out is you definitely want to use platforms that'll give you data, but you can also talk to your customers. If you're curious where they're spending their time, ask them. I always would advise, don't go out there and try to build a followership on like 10 social media platforms. Pick 3 or 4 where your audience is, even 1 or 2 to begin with. Go where your audience is, go where you can make an impact, and grow from there. It also gives us a great way to communicate with your audience and meet them where they are. And I think it's quite inbound friendly. So as you're getting started with your social media plan, here's some things you can think about as you're getting ready to build a followership or increase the followership. Figure out what your goals are. This is one where I see people will go after increasing social media presence, and that would just be the general goal sometimes. Like, hey, we need to increase our social presence. That's too broad, frankly. We want to set goals that are more specific, measurable, achievable, timely, and realistic. So we want to not just say, hey, let's go after social. Maybe say, all right, we want to start a Facebook brand page. We want to grow it from maybe 10 followers since it's new up to 10,000 followers. Set a goal that's reasonable, set a goal that's actually going to help your bottom line business. So maybe it's you've got a great LinkedIn followership, but maybe they're not actually doing much for your business and you want to get them back to your website, or you want to get them engaging with other content in a different social channel. Make sure that your goals are really, really specific and targeted so that they're more achievable. We also want to define who the target audience is. This is going to go back to that human piece of making sure your social media really, really, really connects with your audience. We don't want to be doing generic social posts. We don't want stuff that's like addy, spammy, things like that. That's not going to register. We want it to feel really like your social posts are really crafted for your target buyer persona. With that in mind, it's going to be really important to understand, what is your brand? What is your brand's persona? What is your brand story? What makes your brand live, breathe, tick? That's going to really help, again, to bring that really awesome element to all of your social posting. Like we talked about, figure out where your audience lives, which social channels they're on. Figure out your time frame. Again, social takes time to build. Set realistic goals when it comes to time frame. It's not realistic that you'd build a huge followership in a month. Give yourself time and runway and figure out what you actually need to do that, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, a year. Maybe you want to do benchmark check-ins during that, but give yourself enough runway and a time frame that makes sense to actually build the type of community and followership and see the type of lead gen and results you want from your social posting. And then lastly, make sure that you have an actionable way to measure your progress towards your goals. We will talk later about this and using software to do that, but it's extremely important with social that you not only set the goal, but you have a way to metric it and metric it consistently, because otherwise social can become an absolute time and money suck if you have no way to figure out if it's actually effective for your business and if it's actually resonating with your target audience. Okay, so I'll take a pause here to address some questions. We're going to work bottom up from the chat. Okay. Do you need multiple? So question 1, do you need multiple social accounts to use Hubspot? No, you do not. We have a social media tool that is available starting at our marketing professional level. You can connect one Facebook account, one LinkedIn account, however few or however many you want. We can help you manage multiple social accounts. And I think there's a benefit. We have a content calendar. We'll talk more about these features a little later, but we have things that will help you schedule, help you post. It's basically a management tool. And I think, yeah, it's definitely useful to have a way to manage social outside of just managing it in an individual account setting. So definitely don't need multiple accounts there. Spinning off of that, question number 2, at what point should a company look at using HubSpot? We as a platform now, we start at free. So we have everything from a free CRM all the way up to enterprise level tools. In my opinion, depending on what you're looking to use us for, it is never too early to start using HubSpot, because ultimately we can be your core database and a core CRM. I'm this is probably for another workshop, but I'm very bullish on people actually leveraging CRM as early as possible. So if you don't have a CRM system in place, you're looking for one, get on our free CRM. We can always talk tools from there. And it's really our job to help let you know at which point you should start using more of the paid tools. And I think that really depends where your efforts and where your priorities lie. Are we trying to sell and do lead gen? Are we trying to do more marketing? Are we trying to market to an existing database? Do we have users we're trying to upgrade off a freemium model? Every business is a little bit different, but never too early, I think, to get into our free tools and start building your database in a more codified way. And then best piece of advice for people just getting started with HubSpot, I think whether you're using our free tools or using our paid tools, take advantage of our resources. We have a huge academy. We have a huge community forum. We have training guides, lessons, video content with our paid tools. We have onboardings, we have support, all of that. Take advantage of our community. My team, even we run a free office hours I'll tell you more about. But yeah, I think I would always tell my customers back when I was on the sales team, let us know where you need help. We can help you. A lot of times when I see customers struggling, it's because they just haven't let us know what they might need help with. So we can always point you in the right direction. Take advantage of all of our content and resources. And Kelly, I'm going to jump back to your question because I want to make sure and answer this one question before. So, the question was, I'm having a hard time building a social media presence for a sex messaging app. And then follow-up question I assumed is that how does a sex tech brand navigate the increasing censorship issues on multiple social media platforms? This one is hard. We see this a lot too with some of our cannabis customers. It's really difficult to get around some of these regulations. That being said, I think those brands more so than ever really need to rely on organic content and on building community and sharing where you can. So some things might have to be more censored, but I would look for, especially maybe ins, partnerships with other businesses in that industry who already have followerships. Influencer marketing could be great. There's a lot of ways to get creative. You might not be able to do paid advertisements. You might not be able to post certain content, but there's probably content adjacent to or that's still educational for your brand that could be really valuable. So we see that, like I said, we see this a lot with like CBD and cannabis companies. There's a lot of education actually that I think can happen there where you don't have to necessarily explicitly talk about the product or the app, but there's a lot that goes into that as kind of an industry, as educating people, helping people, having people be able to connect with each other. So I think focusing on some of those more creative ways around it and focusing a lot on the educational piece is probably going to be helpful for that. And then I would also say, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Look at other brands in your space who are doing a great job of it and either like try to talk to someone who's running their social or take a cue out of their book, figure out what works. And if you find something also a piece of content that works for you, run with that, do that. Again, having platforms that'll help you to measure will help you figure out what works. I don't think you need to be fully expansive. Go for what works, go for the low hanging fruit. Okay. And then Kelly, back to Kelly's question. She has a company, Allura Collective, which is a team of international career coaches, remote work coaches, and relocation support, B2B service, but also has B2B products for hiring teams. Awesome. And her question was, she has Asana, Planoly, would HubSpot replace both? Lots of tools out there doing the same thing. It's been hard to choose. Yes, so HubSpot, we are not a full project management tool. We do natively integrate with things like Asana, Trello, Jira. It really depends on what you're looking to use us for, but our point as a platform is to be as holistic as possible and then to natively integrate with other tools. So we really want to be your true database, your system of record, allow you to do your sales, marketing, customer service from a more all-in-one perspective. I think, Kelly, given that nature of your business, we as a system typically do well with what I would call B2B2C type businesses, which are you're selling, you have a B2B element and a B2C element. We do well with that type of database segmentation. We do well working with teams, managing different pipelines, things like that. My suggestion would be to come to our office hours, which I'll tell you more about. Come to our office hours or talk with our team. I think we could be a replacement there. And we like to play well with other softwares. So we like to do as much as we can as a software. And then if there's another platform where maybe we don't have that functionality built in, we natively integrate with them. So we want to make it easy for our customers to use us plus any other software, but also hopefully streamline systems. So you don't end up with that feeling of like, I'm using 25 tools just to try to do my marketing and pull a report. Awesome. These are great questions. Any other questions? Okay, cool. We're going to jump back in then. All right. So quickly, as we're thinking social, if anyone isn't familiar with the term buyer persona or persona development, I think this is a really, really critical exercise to go through and actually to go through every once in a while for your company. Every couple of years, we at HubSpot started off going after one buyer persona. We now have about 6 that we target as a company. Basically, this is an exercise that will help you to determine who your best fit target customers are. So what you can start to do is you plan this, and I actually have a persona checklist available at the end of this presentation, but start to think about like, how old is your target customer? What's their job role? What's their experience? Do they have a family? Do they not? What are their goals? What are their challenges? What keeps them up at night? This is going to help you to do your marketing and specifically your social posting in a way that's going to really, really speak to that persona. So for an example of one of ours that we use now, he's called Growth Gary. And you can see some of the things that we think about. This informs our sales outreach, and this informs the way we do our marketing. When we create marketing collateral, we want to make sure that we are taking growth Gary and what's going to speak to him in mind when we put out an ebook, when we post a social, when our sales team puts together informational or like outreach emails, things like that. So really important, as I mentioned, you can have a few buyer personas. Definitely important to craft those and always keep your buyer persona in mind when you're posting to social. So this is really interesting. And this is, again, it goes back to the question of like, all right, we want to get a followership. There's a lot of social platforms out there. Which channel do we focus on? Most people spend time on, I would say probably like 2 to 3 to 4 different channels. Your business, you might want to go after all of them. There's probably going to surface a few that are most impactful and most useful for you from an actual lead generation and a lead conversion and a revenue perspective. So when you're going after multiple channels, there's some things to keep in mind. You want to use consistent photos and consistent branding throughout. So by that, I mean your logos need to look consistent, your branding needs to look consistent. I think we've all probably felt this as consumers. When you love a brand, or maybe you found a new small business and you're like, oh, it's awesome. I'm going to go from their website. I'm going to try to find them on Instagram. And all of a sudden you're like, I think this is them, but their branding is really different or their name is super different. Make sure you have consistent branding. We want to reduce friction and make it easy for your followers to follow you. So make sure everything looks really nice and streamlined across all of your social channels, your website, your logos, your email marketing, all of that. Keep all your username and tags consistent. And then understand, though, that people spend time on different platforms for different reasons. So this is a big mistake and a big pothole, I'll call it, that I see people falling into when they are new to posting to social, is they'll post the same content across every social channel, thinking like, okay, we did all this work. We have an event to promote. We have an ebook out. Let's post it to everything. This is going to give your followers what we call follower fatigue. Now, this isn't to say that, for example, say you have an event coming up. This isn't to say that you can't promote the event across your different channels. You simply need to make sure that the way you're promoting it is really specific to those different channels. For example, Instagram is geared towards visual. They're very photo-centric. LinkedIn is more geared towards long-form posts. They also have a hashtag, like the algorithm picks up on hashtags, things like that. Facebook is, again, a little more like video, long form. So make sure that you are thinking about what you're posting and the way you're posting. So also your followers who are maybe following you across all social channels aren't going like, oh my gosh, I just saw literally a TikTok, an Instagram reel, a LinkedIn video, and a Facebook video, and a Pinterest post, all of the same thing from this one business. Now my feed is just overwhelmed with this one business. A good way to make sure too, when it comes to content, is that you are following the 80-20 rule when posting. So this one I always think about. I even think about this in a sales process. 80-20 rule means 80% of your content should be educational, thought leadership, fun stuff, cool stuff, highlighting customers, other businesses in your ecosystem that you think maybe, hey, we interviewed them, how cool. All of it, 80% should be about like educational stuff. About 20% should be referencing specifically your product or your business. Again, this is a big pothole I see a lot of early stage companies or small businesses fall into. They'll have a new product, they'll be launching something, and all of a sudden their whole feed just turns into a bunch of product notifications. Need those, love those. Make sure that you aren't, again, giving your followers follower fatigue by getting too much into your own product and not enough into all of the educational content surrounding your business and your brand. And Doc asked if we have TikTok data. We are not yet. We probably will by the end of the year. It's such a new platform, and I don't think have cracked necessarily the code to use it from a marketing perspective. I'm sure we will come out with it, and I will update when we do kind of have the hang of that. But yeah, as of now, it's something that we're experimenting with from a marketing perspective. So TBD on that one. And then, Kelly is adding so this is a great question. Kelly asked, is adding our call to action, does that fall into the 20% rule? No. So it depends on what the call to action is. I would say, actually, so Kelly, I would say yes and no. Let me rephrase that. I would say yes and no. If your call to action is always click here to purchase, or click here to sign up for a demo of our product, click here to call a coach, Yeah, that might fall into the 20% rule. But if your call to action is a call to action to come back to your website and maybe download an ebook or sign up for a free 10-minute consultation or maybe sign up for a trial, something where it's more of a give or something where it's like, hey, did you like, this 10, did you like this maybe short post? Hey, click here to read the whole article or click here to download the whole white paper. That falls more into the 80. So I think it depends. Also, like, don't put the same CTA on everything. You do want calls to action. You do want people coming back off your social, but just make sure that you're varying it. Yeah, I think, and Kelly asked again, is book of recession something? Don't want to overdo it, but social goal is to drive leads and grow revenue. I love that. Yeah, I think it should always be, even if it's something like, hey, click here to download, that should always be something that's gated and that's downloadable. So when you're pushing people off of social, you shouldn't just be pushing them back to your website to consume free content. You should be pushing them to some type of gated offer. And then I think you can have gated offers where it's a free session, a free download, a free quiz, maybe something, a little more like, hey, try a trial. If you get more into that B2B software side, you can have a range. But I think I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think that's also a common mistake is people will get all this traffic and it's awesome. And then they'll even start pushing it back to the website, but it's just back to like a blog. You're giving away your content if you're not gating it. So make sure that there's some type of hook. If they like your content enough where they're like, yeah, I'm going to click on that, they should probably at least give you their email in exchange for that, make the offer make sense. But I definitely think that's kind of a good rule to follow, is make sure that you are actually tying your social posting back to the goal, tie it into some type of lead conversion driver. Awesome. Yeah. Make sure if you've got downloads, move into the 80, gate that content, get that out there. People like free content. People like downloading stuff. We're all, I think, still home a little bit more than we'd like. So people love stuff that they can consume on their own time. Give people downloads, but don't be afraid also to ask for like an email in exchange for that. Then you can do lead nurture to them. Awesome. So as you're setting up this plan and as you're setting up your social media strategy, make sure you have a content calendar. We'll take a look at what Hubspot's looks like, but this is one that I also see this is a consistent pothole, is that people start off really strong when they're going after building a followership, and then life and deals and projects and partnerships and everything else as it pertains to running and growing your business takes precedent. And all of a sudden your social hasn't been posted to in 2 weeks, a month, things like that. All of these social platforms reward consistency and engagement, which is a little frustrating when it comes to time, but it's the truth, is that all of them will show your posts more often, will show your posts in the feed, in the algorithm, if you post consistently and if you comment, like back, and actually engage on their platforms. So keeping a social media calendar will make it easy for you to say, yep, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those are my days. I post to social media, I take an hour, and after I posted, I like back, I comment back, I go follow some other brands, I comment on their social media posts. Basically, make sure you're blocking off time to consistently not only post, but actually do the follow-up and engage. You want to tie social media into your content strategy. So make sure that it lives as a part of your larger marketing strategy. I think Kelly's question was great for this. Make sure that social isn't living in a silo. Did I just hear someone come off of mute with a question? Okay. But basically make sure that social media isn't living in a silo apart from all of your other marketing efforts. All of your marketing efforts should tie together, which is ultimately to the two goals of lead generation, customer acquisition, and revenue growth. That's 3. And then I already hit on this with the previous question, but don't try to reinvent the wheel. A lot of times I'll hear from businesses that, it's going to take time to create social content. And I think we all have a really high aspiration of like, you're putting content out there. It's your brand. You want it to be really unique and special. Not every post needs to be the most impactful, most game-changing, life-changing thing ever. As we've talked about, a lot of these platforms reward consistency and engagement in terms of actually showing your post to more followers. So simply getting something that looks nice out there is going to be more important than sitting there and crafting like the most perfect social post ever. With that in mind, look for existing content you have. A lot of times you can probably repurpose things into a social post so that you can use what you have. If you had a newsletter, a blog post you wrote, a piece of video content you put, that can be repurposed. You can take bits out of it. You can maybe do a highlight, a preview, take a picture, things like that. Repurpose that, get as much traction out of the content you're creating as you can so that you can post more consistently. And then I've already mentioned this, but I'll mention it again because I think it's very important to metric everything. Measure your progress as you're going and metric your progress towards your goals. So some trends to look for. Live video is huge. I think this goes back to the TikTok question. We have all seen a huge increase in people's desire to engage with live video content. 80% of users prefer to view a live video over a long form post. However, only 33% of businesses currently go live. Now, I think this somewhat depends on a business's industry, brand, things like that, but know that video is there for you and people like consuming video content, whether that's a live video, whether that's a recorded video, whether that's a short video that's more in like a TikTok reel, whether it's a longer YouTube video, people love video. Use it to your advantage. The internet is also about to overthrow TV. Again, I think TV will always exist, but look at the way that we're all streaming. I stream most of my content on devices. Actually, a lot of it I stream via YouTube in shorter form segment. Again, take a human approach. Think about where your consumers are and how they're typically consuming content, and then go to where they are. Live video can also be really great for product launches and announcements. I think it's a way to really humanize those types of things versus coming out in just an email marketing newsletter or like a product blog, something like that. It's a nice way to put a human face to your brand. It's a really nice way to engage too in a less like businessy corporate way and engage in a really human kind of brand forward way. Live video is also preferred by Gen Z, which they are about to have great power in the consumer market as they continue to age and grow up. And lastly, you can also use video transcript services to help you turn your live video into content for SEO. So if you give an awesome, like do an awesome live interview or something like that, you can use a transcript service, and then that maybe becomes a blog post or maybe a customer testimonial that lives on your site. Going back to that planning slide, make sure that all of this stuff, all your social, all the work you're doing is tying into your broader marketing strategy and that you're repurposing everything for its maximum efficiency. Paid advertising is another thing that I actually think is great. I think paid advertising should live in tandem with an organic social and organic content strategy. Paid advertising is a great way to get in front of people. It's a great way to get eyes on your site, eyes on a new product, on a new brand. If you have the backing of an also quality organic social media strategy and organic content strategy, people will see like, oh, okay, this is really relevant. I'm not just being spammed here with an ad. This is a nice business that's also paying to play. And I always think about ads as like, if you do them right, and if they are targeting your target customer and your target persona, they're not going to feel spammy. They're not going to feel like an ad. They are going to be additive to the person. Again, I think we've all probably experienced this as a consumer, being actually surprised, being like, oh, it's a targeted ad, but I did want that. And that is timely to me. If you know your target, if you know your consumers, if you know your buyers, if you know where they spend their time, how they think, what they're trying to solve for, and you make your paid ads answer those questions in a timely way on the right channels, your ads will be met with a good engagement. And I'll also just say for ads, make sure you have a tracker that goes, and I really harp on data, but make sure you have a way to track your ads to make sure that they are not just generating you clicks and likes and engagements and reshares, but actually generating you leads and revenue. A lot of times people stop and they're like, oh yeah, we got great clicks, but the ad actually didn't generate the right type of people or the right type of leads for them. So really make sure you have a way as you're experimenting or as you're running your ad strategy, really make sure you have a way to make sure that your ads are generating you quality leads that are actually going through and becoming customers. And lastly, social monitoring is really awesome. By social monitoring, I mean using tools that would allow you or signal you like, hey, someone mentioned Hubspot on Twitter. We have this a lot. Someone might mention like, hey, looking for a CRM. Anyone have any suggestions? Things like that. So we have social monitoring set up that allows our marketing team to get a notification. It's like, oh, someone's looking for a CRM. Maybe we should jump in that convo, or maybe we should, ask one of our customers who had a great experience if they could, maybe give some input, something like that. Social monitoring allows you to respond and engage in conversations in real time versus waiting for it to surface or having to go hunt for it yourself. And then also we use chatbots. We love chatbots. When you are doing that lead generation, lead conversion piece, having a chatbot up. So when someone does come to your website, having a chatbot up so they can instantly chat with you or with your business, always nice. It goes back to that whole idea of meeting your consumer where they are in the most timely manner and helping to reduce friction. So I will take another pause here. How do you navigate live video with very little in-person presence? I would say you probably want to do some prep before it. So that depends. I think it's like chicken or egg. Sometimes you might just have a smaller presence. You could also do some marketing around it. You could take your existing customers, you could really market it as if you were doing an event, and then you could record it, and then you could promote it, and then you could use that to kind of build and capitalize on the next one. I think people also, again, you could have it live and you could also record it. We find that we do that a lot sometimes because we work with a lot of time zones and a lot of geos. Sometimes we don't get a ton of attendance on the event, but we record and we share out. So then it's still a live event. You still get that experience. And as a consumer or as a potential customer, you can still see the human side of it, but you can consume it in your own time zone, on your own time, things like that. So I would say it's probably a balance. Don't be afraid to start and try experimenting. I would also say, like, it doesn't need to be perfect your first live. Try it, experiment with it. See also, this is great. I think the best way to figure out what your customers or what your users want to see from a social media or even from a marketing perspective is ask them. If you think that your consumers or your prospective audience would like a live, maybe send them a survey or an email saying like, hey, we're thinking about, experimenting with the way we do some social. What would you like to see? Could you fill out this quick survey? Here's 3 options. We found that a lot of our customers have done that with their marketing and with events they put on, webinars they put on, and gotten a really great response. So don't be afraid to use your existing users, customers, followers as informational resources. They should be your best resource for what they want to see. I say go direct to the source and ask them, in a polite, not too time consuming way, ask them what they want to see and then engage from there. Any other questions before we jump into software side? Okay, so I had changed this. Initially, this was how can HubSpot help? I changed it to how can software help because I like to be a little bit software agnostic when we speak. HubSpot has all these tools. We're going to take a look at how HubSpot can do this. That being said, there are a lot of social media management tools on the market. Benefit of HubSpot is we have our social tools as a part of our all-in-one platform, so they naturally live as a part of your broader marketing strategy. But that being said, depending on your software stack, on personal preference, I always think use a software instead of no software, instead of just going through the individual channels to help you manage. And HubSpot could be one of those. So HubSpot and any social tool that you're using should help you to do 3 things. It should help you to post, monitor, and report on the efficiency of your social media marketing from all in one place. So as you look at how HubSpot does it, we group together all of your socials. So you can post, you can schedule posts, you can monitor those posts, you can report on them all from in one place. If you've built assets inside of HubSpot, like if you've written a blog post, if you've built a landing page, you can really easily share those out via social. We have a way, we integrate with things like Vidyard, we integrate with Canva. So if you're building any content, assets, video, things like that you want to post, we make it really easy. Again, most social tools should help you to do this. And I think the biggest piece is the scheduling piece. Social can be such a big time commitment, especially because the algorithms are rewarding people more and more for engagement, reposts, likes, shares, comments, follows, things like that. It does take time. You can schedule a lot of your posts out in advance and then spend the time instead of every day going in there thinking like, oh, I have to post, I have to reply. Block off time, daily, weekly, whatever it is, to actually come in, engage on the posts, follow other people, build that brand, but use tools to kind of take a lot of the manual work out of it and to help you to schedule out everything in advance so it just runs. You can also do the monitoring that we talked about. So we have a social media monitoring tool. There's a lot of other software out there that does social media monitoring, but essentially, like I said, it's trying to catch those engagements, interactions, maybe even a potential customer service issue. I think a lot of times people, maybe they'll have like a not great experience with a brand. They're like, oh, I'm going to go tweet about it. You want to be able to catch that. Maybe it's something that wasn't even really an issue. They just needed to talk to someone. You want to be right there when it happens. You want to catch that. So you can set up social listening and social monitoring for keywords, for your brand name, for competitors' names, whatever it might be across social channels there. And lastly, we've talked about this quite a lot, but make sure that we're tying social performance to your business's bottom line. And specifically that your software platform that you're using is helping you to do that. If the software you're using, if the marketing agency you're using, the ad agency, whatever it might be, if they are not able to provide you with data on how not only your social is performing, but how many of those leads are actually coming back to your website, how many of those are converting, and how many of those are actually turning into paying customers, then there's a gap in functionality there. So as you're evaluating whatever software you want to use for your social media, make sure that it is able to tie your social media's performance to your business's bottom line. So I think we've got about 10 minutes left here. This presentation was brought to you through our partnership with Grid110. As I mentioned, I work for our Hubspot for Startups programs. We love startups, small businesses, all of this great stuff. The thing I will offer here is that my team actually runs a free weekly open office hours. I can send it to Elizabeth to share if that would be helpful. But every week, my team opens up a free office hours where we can talk with prospective customers, current customers, answer any questions that you might have on strategy, our software. I typically say bring about 15 to 20 minutes worth of questions that we can go through. It's done in a group setting. But if you're curious about learning more, feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Come check out our startup program. Come check out HubSpot in general. We have a free CRM. And as I mentioned, we also have a huge academy full of resources, all free content. A lot of it is strategically focused. So if you're curious and learning more about social media marketing, email marketing, anything that we do, we probably have a free course on it for you. Yeah, this has been a pleasure. I will open it up for questions now. Actually, stop the share.
I have a question. This is Doc Miller. So with the office hours, is that time also utilized? Like this looks like an amazing product. I'm not sure I fully understand it and how it will be helpful to my business. So is that part of what office hours are used for?
Yeah, so we're used to augment. So we have a full sales team, and I would definitely say if you're considering using us, talk to our sales team. They'll take you through a full evaluation. They can do a custom demo. But if you leave that and you're like, I still have questions, or we ran out of time to cover a certain feature, or actually, wanted to look at that more in depth, office hours is an augment to that. So we can either start your evaluation for you by answering a few high level questions and telling you like, hey, go ask our sales team this. Or if you're in an evaluation, we can help point you in the right direction or review some features, answer some key questions. Same with if you've gone through an onboarding with us and you're like, hey, this tool's in my portal and I haven't used it yet. How would I use it? So it's an augment to a lot of the other services that you would find at HubSpot.